Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Chi Johnson and I am a brand and communications manager at Intellum. Our team of award-winning customer education professionals help the largest and fastest moving brands in the world successfully educate their customers, partners, and employees. We are the disruptors, the innovators, the creators, and the doers. And for 22 years, we have been observing and rethinking how people learn and collaborate. Customer education is a practical solution that a lot of organizations face with retention, revenue, and achieving those crucial business outcomes. And oftentimes what we have found in our experience is that it can be pretty difficult. It can feel complicated, but Intellum is here to help. This webinar series underscore is our way of providing more insight into what customer education or organizational education is and what it can be. So what we do is we prop up our experts, our team members, our partners, our customers to share their knowledge and practical advice right here inside of the Intellum platform, which we call Experience. So where you logged in today to actually access this webinar is the platform, and we're wanting to really immerse you in the experience so you can see exactly how it can be used and enabled. I use that word on purpose. Today, we are presenting Reimagining Enablement with Education. If training teaches what, enablement teaches why. So join us right today for this event where we'll be discussing how education can leverage your enablement to help your team show customers or your audiences the real benefits of your offerings. So we will answer questions at the end of the presentation. And I say presentation, but it's really a discussion. So what we would love for you to do is go ahead and pop your questions in the webinar in the chat panel right there, or using the Q&A function. We'll keep an eye on them. If the question is contextual to the part we're at, we'll answer it right then and there. But if there's one that you'd like us to ask later on, then we'll go ahead and do that then. Right now, though, it is my pleasure to introduce today's featured speaker, Mr. Jordan Hopkins. Jordan is the education program manager for the Intellum platform. He gets to collaborate with all of our departments to help deliver learning and enablement for all of our audiences. So he lives right now, as we said earlier, in Tampa, Florida. And it's actually, what's the weather like there? You said it's not sunny today, right?
It's been rather apocalyptic and stormy outside today.
Oh gosh. Well, that is not the visual we usually have for Tampa. So we're just going to pretend like it's nice and sunshine outside. But Jordan also has a small family. He and his son recently discovered vinyl records and is enjoying playing those and then playing guitar together too. We actually got to see that in our Intellum talent show we did. We did a really fun internal talent show and Jordan got to play the guitar. He is amazing at it, by the way. Just if you want some insider tip, if you want to like ping him and ask him to play you some, I bet he will. But anyway, Jordan, welcome to Underscore. This is your first time on the stage.
Woo, thank you, Chief. That was like an epic introduction. I can't beat that. Guys, I'm really humbled to be here and chat with you. I'm a big learning nerd. I love organizational education, how to help people. Before my corporate stint, I also was a public school teacher. So I've had a chance to work with all age groups over my career. And so I'm excited to be here with you all and help support you and talk together and hopefully learn some things from you as well about enablement as we go through. So yeah, I'm excited, Chi.
Me too. This is a really great topic. And I know like we're going to dive into the word enablement, and I want to like just admit it, like let's just put it out there. It's an elephant in the room. Shout out to Banksy and his groundbreaking work. But this is a piece he did in 2006 where he painted an actual elephant to match the wallpaper so that to symbolize like the elephant in the room. Now, this was a conversation about poverty, so completely different. We're talking about enablement here. But the term is kind of vague. So can you help us understand what we're like, why? What is going on with this word enablement and why are we hearing it so much?
Yeah. So if for those who've been in the business for a while, when you think enablement, you probably think classically of like sales enablement and providing resources and just-in-time things help prop up your sales team to deliver on pitches and close deals and so forth. But nowadays, if you go on LinkedIn or research on Google, like when you look up enablement, there's product enablement and all these different types. And so I feel like the term is kind of like expanded from where it was classically. I think in the larger picture of customer education or employee education, enablement kind of nestles inside of it as a tactical, quick way to get what people need to do their jobs or to provide value to other people. So that's the super high level short version. And I would love to hear also from you all in a minute, like what we think about that. So
the fuzzy word, like if we get into like the actual definition of it, like based on Webster's dictionary, it's the action of giving someone the authority or the means to do something, right? So like you said, it's coming from that traditional lens of sales enablement, but the definition of the word is giving someone that authority or means to do something. And when we're talking technologically, it's just a little different, right, Jordan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that second part, like making something operational or activation. I think in terms of people, it's about empowerment. So we're trying to provide things so they can be empowered to do their job or to use the product well. And that's the exciting part about enablement and learning, is that we get to help empower people.
I absolutely love that. So then when we were preparing for this conversation and really trying to figure out how to communicate this, you mentioned already the history of like sales enablement, and that's kind of what people are familiar with. Can you dive into like the different types of enablement that people might have accessed or have seen or touched, or just defining it for us?
Yeah, so probably a really common one we all come across is also product enablement. And we see that for both audiences, actually, for internal and external. So like, if you've ever come across an in-app video that pops up or a modal that helps you with a certain feature, you're experiencing some product enablement. And there's also enablement for customer success teams. There's businesses who have, CSM enablement now built in to help support those field team members. And for external facing side, we have enablement for our customers, which we also sometimes call customer education on a broader term, and also, of course, our partners as well. And so I feel like that's based on from what I've seen, it's grown a lot. And if you spend any time researching enablement on LinkedIn, look at enablement roles, you'll see the same kind of broad spectrum with how people are doing that in the profession. So it's kind of exciting, but it's also, I feel, very broad nowadays.
So then what that means is like, I would love to dive into what makes enablement effective though. So like, we're talking about the different types of enablement, the different audiences. And so when the whole point of this is we could sit here and like detail enablement and how to build it and how to do all that stuff. But like Jordan has a different mindset. You have a different like approach to this. So tell us, what is the approach?
Yeah. So before, we wanted this to be tactical and helpful, have takeaways for everybody, not just simply talk about what is enablement, because you probably all know that. But in the chat, and I would kind of love to know real quick, and from your experience at your organization or institution, what have you found to be really effective enablement? If you're newer to this realm and you're kind of learning, just say, hey, I'm just here to learn. But if you've been around it and you've been in L&D, or you've worked in human resources or on with sales teams, like, to you, what is like effective enablement in your definition? Just give me like a sentence. I kind of want to see where we're all at. Okay, cool. So in the chat, dropping like, I'm here to learn. Like, I want to get something new, which is totally cool. Because honestly, guys, I'm still learning all the different facets of enablement too. But in your idea, what makes effective enablement? Not just what it is, but what makes it effective?
New to this area. I had a feeling we would have a lot of people here who are like
Cool.
trying to understand it from a whole, but yeah, this is cool.
Ooh, yeah. So set others up to be successful. Right on, Alec. Bhavani, hope I said your name right. Enable learners to find the right learning at the right time. Heck yeah, right. Susan, multiple times to engage learners. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the 5 areas of need for learners. Max is when you can apply the knowledge to change the behavior. Yeah,
that's really good. That is really good.
Yeah, some would argue that enablement in itself, like job aids and such, aren't learning, but as we use them, it should cause transformation over time. So that's a good point, Max. Jordan, great name, by the way. Understanding the learner needs and expectations, meeting them where they are at. Right on, man. This is great.
These are great. So
yeah,
I think that's a great way to transition to like the context. So now that we kind of understand like what people's feelings are about what makes effective enablement, like let's talk about enablement in the context of organizational education.
Yeah. So like on the broader term, this is kind of like our like shortened definition of enablement. And we feel like it's delivering relevant and timely learning resources to the people who matter the most to us, our employees, our partners, and our customers. And so we're going to go through what we feel like are 5 big themes that we notice from really, really effective enablement. And this is not to say that these are the only traits, or that this is like, a heavy research thing that we pulled from 4,000. This is more just from best practices research. It's from observation and from hearing from other professionals. And those 5 are multidisciplinary and collaborative. It's human first, which some of you guys touched on already. It's contextual. It's authentic and valuable. And lastly, it's iterative and flexible. And the one thing I hope that you guys hear, should hopefully encourage that enablement, though it seems nebulous and confusing the terms sometimes, how we can do is actually productive and helpful. So
with those traits and those qualities, I would love to like continue with this interactivity. And I would love to figure out, what do people feel like is the most important out of these? Like, before we dive into them, which of these do you think is most important? We're going to launch a poll and we'd love for you guys to rank them. Well, pick your top, which you think is the most important.
Yeah. Don't worry, there's no like right or wrong answer here. I'm still making up my mind about it. So there should be a poll that's popping up. Go ahead and put in your vote and submit it, and we'll share the results when you guys are all done.
Okay. Very interesting.
Okay. Are you able to share the results to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Absolutely. We've got just 66% of our attendees have voted. Let's try to get to 67. One more person. Oh, 70.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Let's share these results. So looks like, based on all of you that have voted, human first and contextual are like neck and neck.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so we're going to talk about why human first is so important, what that actually means. So I'm glad you guys thought that was super important for enablement. Love it.
So let's dive into them, Jordan. Let's see, I would love for you to explore each of these, and let's figure out what that actually means in application.
Yeah. So the first, by the way, Danny said, shout out to humanity. Absolutely, Danny. The first trait is that it's multidisciplinary and collaborative. And what I mean by that is that, as you're building enablement, you're going to realize real fast, if you haven't already, that you cannot do it in a silo, and you cannot only use one skill set. And so it's going to blend some best practices from marketing and communications and instructional design and graphic and web design. So for example, let's say you have a new sales job aid. You want to get out to like 4,000 sales. That'd be a huge team, but they say 4,000 people, right? And let's say you fail to market it ahead of time and you don't communicate it with proper best practices, and you just drop it in an intranet. Will anybody use it? And so it can be like the most beautiful piece of well-designed, resource for enablement that's based on, what they need. But if it's not marketed or communicated well, it will kind of fall flat. Same thing with like when we launch a new education initiative, like on broader things, marketing and communications is a huge part of delivery with it. And for me, whenever I think of like a new piece of enablement or a new learning resource, I have to always think, okay, how is this going to get out to the people in time? And I got to kind of include in the padding and the time to make sure I hit on that. Yeah, and so it's multidisciplinary. So if you're an instructional designer, or I'm not sure what your role is, actually, if you guys don't mind, in the chat, if you're allowed to share, tell me what your role is real quick, so I can kind of see where everyone's at with what they do. That way I can kind of tailor some of our discussion.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so IAD, learning designer. Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. LXD. Okay, so a lot of people in learning design here. I learned. Okay, very cool. Build out customer enablement. Bella, that's great. Love it. And then who mentioned okay, cool. And Dan, you said you're an ID and a marketing manager. That's two big hats to wear. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
I was gonna say that is a very, very large load.
Yeah. Okay. And Laura, you're an education product manager. Perfect. So I think Laura, you'll probably see here in a second when we get to this next slide, that's gonna really work. And Janina, very L&D program manager. Great. So okay, so we all kind of share the L&D space. That's a good start. So let's go ahead to the next screen. And this is like this role of enablement and learning. It's so collaborative. I'm sure you all are aware of this, but like you just can't do it. It needs a huge freaking team. Like you need a lot of people around you to do it well. And so as you're designing things, and I think we forgot an important dot in here. I forgot one is the learner themselves. So they're going to inform all this. But then as you're building out new resources for, say, a new product release coming out next quarter, you got to rely on that engineers and the product team, all those SMEs and stakeholders to inform the resources properly. And our job is to kind of distill it down to something useful to get out to everybody, right? And then our product marketers help us communicate it well to external audiences and internal audiences. And some of you might be doing a lot of this by yourself. You might be part marketer and part instructional designer, right? And part documentation. And so if you're feeling kind of like hurried and like on fire all the time, that's probably why, and so doing good enablement is definitely a collaborative team sport. I don't feel like I could succeed at this if I wasn't getting help from people like Chi and others around Intellum, like it'd be like a Jordan dumpster fire pretty much, just me. So yeah.
I'm honored. And I know
Yeah.
I just say this like flat out. Jordan is one of the best people to work with. Like you cannot, not one human being in Intellum has anything ill to say about Jordan, but also the common thread about working with Jordan and specifically like with your role in enablement is your enthusiasm for the content and for the learner and the learner journey. So like that, I think is one of the biggest components of this circle of enablement. It's like the person who's at the helm of this and really like driving the ship, like having that enthusiasm for the learner, which we'll get into like the human first part of it, is really important. So Jordan, like you have put together, and I want to like, before we get to the next slide, like for each of these components and these qualities and these traits, you put together some really great tools and resources on how to make this work. So can you share those with us?
Yeah. And quick question, you're going to share the slides with the participants after the fact too, right? So
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't normally, but depending if it's a subject that needs like that support and we're giving a lot of information, we absolutely will. And this is one of those topics. So you will have all of these.
So don't forget to take notes right now or like jot this down, but these are some tools you probably already use. But if say you're looking for, okay, I need a solution for X, Y, or Z, we're going to share some of our favorite tools, help you with that. So for project management, if you need to like bring people together, if you're still working in just Google Docs or Sheets, trying to manage big projects, try Asana or Trello. For ideation and brainstorming, Jamboards made by Google. It's a great free resource. And there's other versions out there like Mural and Miro, which are like kind of like interactive whiteboards for planning out things like big picture. Then for content development, some great tools include Notion, Coda, and Google Docs. All three of those allow commenting in context of each line. The only thing I would say is that Notion and Coda, though, you can also do databases within the content as well. So it's a little more thorough. So if you're really overseeing the LMS or the content updates you got to bring out to all your employees or customers, you might want something good to kind of manage your content so you can track like its freshness and when it needs to be updated and who the writers are or who needs graphic designers, because Google Docs sometimes can't do all that. And the last of all, for communications, some kind of social channel like Slack and internet email stuff that you guys already use, but nothing new there. Any questions about any of those tools or about the first point, or feel free to ask in the chat.
Yeah, I'm loving this. This is a really great list of resources, and I'm sure like we are not being paid by any of these brands to promote them. Like,
yeah, we don't know how. This is all just like we like these. Like, there's no affiliation here. There's no like we're not getting paid. It's just I just want to make a list for you guys to help out. So,
and also while we're waiting to see for feedback real quick, I did want to mention, I usually mention this in the beginning, but while underscore is our way of like helping you understand organizational education and applying these principles and these topics, it's important to know that while we are a platform provider, an education platform provider, we are hoping that the things that we talk about during underscore are concepts and practices and really like tangible things that you can apply no matter what technology you're using. Of course, we'd love for you to be our customer, but you don't have to be, and we completely understand that our competitors' customers are here, and like this is meant to grow our industry and to move the needle forward to help people deliver education successfully. So moving right along to our next pillar, or
this is a great quote from Julie Stancompiano. She's the CEO of Oxygen. And in one of her e-learning industry articles about learning in the flow of work or contextualized learning, she says, the process starts with working to understand the day-to-day reality of the employee's roles and to define the business outcomes that each role needs. So a lot of times we start with content first. We like someone requests, hey, Chi, we got to get out 2 new product release enablement pieces by end of like yesterday, and these are my slides, just repackage it real quick, right? And a lot of times we'll kind of like just get requests, go straight to content and just work with it, but we missed the human element of it. So Chi, you can go to the next slide. That's like kind of like our next point, which you guys all agreed was like the most important thing is humanity first, right? The people we're designing enablement and learning for, they're people at the end of a screen who got to press through all those next buttons on the PowerPoint, have to watch 2-hour videos or webinars. And so like, are we addressing their needs and their pain points? Are we listening to them? And with that, the challenge for us in L&D is that one size fits all approaches rarely work. Yes, we can scale. There's ways to build, content from multiple audiences. I'm not saying not to scale, but if we kind of like hold our ears tight and tune out what our audiences and employees need, then like we kind of risk just missing the mark a little bit. And I'm sure you all have at some point have created something that may have fallen flat right away. I mean, I know I have. There's been times where I've created something and like it just didn't work. It was like too long, or it didn't hit the exact need. And that's where we get to kind of like, come back to one of the other points. But anyway, so yeah, this is my favorite one too, is it's about people, and our learners.
Yeah, I love the fact that last one is there, listen, listen, listen. Like if you are not listening and giving yourself an opportunity to measure and effectiveness, and well, I mean, we'll get into why that matters when you get into one of your later ones, but I just love that, because when you mention scaling, it's if you cover your ears and you put your blinders on and you're just building and delivering and you're not listening to what people actually need, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot to be able to scale. So people think that is the key to scaling, is just like, hurry up, get the content out, build the things. But if you're not listening to your learner and also focusing on the processes at the same time, then you will not be able to scale. So even if that's your goal, you can't do it in your, yes. So I love
100%. And we all know that right now, community and social is huge. And like, people do things because we care about each other and care about the mission and values, not just because some content got thrown to our screen, so it's got to be more than just simply accessible. Okay, so some tools for you to help listen better. Number one is voice of customer research, or VOC. This is a very common tactic in marketing, but what this can be as simple as a survey, interviews with people that use your product or use your services, and hearing from them to learn what their pain points are. You can watch them use the product. Like, really, this is kind of like stuff that we see in UX as well. So these things can help inform or help us improve learning resources or enablement to make it better for them and more useful. Another tool is A/B testing. I know in Intellum, we A/B test features a lot. We'll release 2 different versions to see like what's working better. I know content marketers, people will release different versions of articles or ads, right, to see what works best. And then the learning, and it's not to say create 2 different e-courses or e-learning courses, but it's more just like maybe you can A/B test which audience receives it first, or timing of communication, or like there's all kinds of things you can A/B test, and start small and simple. Next tool is measure engagement to lean into what's working. So try metrics, user data that pulls in from your LMS, stuff that you guys already know. And the last of all is a needs analysis. This is a typical instructional design tool where you look at knowledge gaps, skills gap, performance gaps, environmental gaps. You look at what the audience, it's kind of similar to voice of customer research and marketing, but it's broader and more based on education. That's one of my favorite tools to listen well and to make sure we're targeting for business goals and the learner needs, and not what I think is just good content, from the start. So there you go. That's a few tools.
Yep. And we've linked a few resources in these that you can, those are actually 2 previous underscore webinars that you can, we talked about like the importance of measuring and like data, and how like it really can inform and should inform everything. So we've got a few resources there that you guys can watch later for this particular, those particular bullet points. What's our next one?
Contextual. Okay, this one's good because like, I don't know about you all, but have you ever been on like Amazon's website, or you're trying to call somebody for help or find where to get help, and you get to their website and it's like, okay, they're closed, so I can't even call them right now. Then you try to use a chat bot, but the chat bot says 48 hours to the next response. You're like, crap. And then like you try to go to the next level, and like at that point you're like, you just give up, log out of your product and just close it down. So like, if our learning is like 15 steps separated from the learner and causes more friction to get there, then it's less likely to be consumed and used and engaged with. So the more we can get it closer to within the product, within the line of their work on a day-to-day basis, delivered to where they're living and breathing every day, then it's more likely to be used when we meet them where they're at. One of our old Learning Science weekly issues addressed learning the flow of work. That's kind of like a term that people can agree with. I recently did like a poll on LinkedIn about it, and everyone weighed in saying like, oh, that's really like informal learning or social learning. And like, yeah, it's kind of like a broad term, but like, how are we bringing people into the learning in their everyday lives is kind of what it's all about, or where they're at, every day. And I think someone mentioned that in the chat earlier, is like, before we even showed the points, that someone mentioned meet the learner where they're at. And that's so key.
So give us the how with the tools, Jordan.
Yeah. So number one is a lot of you guys are in L&D, so you've got to deliver learning or resources to your employees some way. You're probably not just simply doing folders on an internet. Hopefully not. You need something a little more dynamic that can deliver your content based on who the learner is or what group they belong to or which audience. And so just check in on your LMS or your LXP, like, is it able to really deliver content based on it and adjust based on chronology? When it's like, here you see a picture of like our events that are upcoming, and that's loaded automatically on our platform. We don't have to do that manually on there. And then in-app modals, this is an easy way you can employ something. You can use a tool like Pendo, if you want to go to the next slide there, Chi, or something you can build with your engineers. And like, you can include things, say there's a question, they can get to a bot or something that kind of helps support them quickly within the app. That's great as well. I don't know, have you guys ever used the app Mural before? Have you guys heard of Mural? It's like a whiteboard app tool. I started trying out this year and I like love it. And the first time I went into it, I was, yeah, okay, sweet Bella's like, yes, okay, I love Murals, great. But I've used great. I can have no affiliation. I'm just a big fan. Just want to caveat that. But like when I first went in there, I was greeted with like these quick little tour of it and some help videos, and like, oh my gosh, it's all in context. I don't have to go hunt for it somewhere. But of course, they have like their blog, right? They have their, other learning materials I can click out to if I want to, but it's kind of like in where I needed it. And this is an area that we're trying to build out more for Intellum. Is like this, we see there's always that need for contextual help. All right, go to the social and chat elements. Are you leveraging social, Slack, something to connect people within your ecosystem of learning? If there's no way for people to share knowledge, right? We know like all that, tacit knowledge or like deep experience knowledge that it's hard to articulate, like that gets lost in the flow. And this is where mentoring can help, and having more experienced employees connect and peers connect. So like, are we leveraging social? This is a fun screenshot. We have a channel about music at Intellum, and we chat about, so, it also adds the human element as well, aside from all the work tasks too. So there's a lot of benefits of social learning involved in there. So go next to searchable content.
Well, I wanted to highlight, just because
Sure.
like the reason we're using our product and like we're talking about the social elements is because like there's, like Jordan is saying, there's so much research about learning in the flow of work and and how the social learning and collaborative learning really supports knowledge retention and like really understanding that. So I wanted to like pause for a second, because what you're seeing here is the groups function. So like the main groups, like Jordan mentioned, you can group by interest. So we've got music groups, we've got specifically education groups, like for the education team, where they can talk cross collaboratively in the chat function. So one-to-one and then one-to-many as well. Having those types of chat environments is what really helps people share, thought share. And then the community that we have here as well, where people can ask questions and upvote and downvote and really like facilitate conversation that extends the knowledge into another, but doesn't take you away from the learning environment, which is the key here. And so like I have to, because it's a really new product for us. And I just wanted to mention, like, being able to have that inside of the learning environment is like really huge. And so that is something we're really proud of, but that doesn't mean you, again, have to use that with Intellum. It's an option, it's a turn on, but it just shows the value of having that in addition and in connection with your learning environment. So some people use external platforms and technology for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to achieve that, but like, I guess the big theme is like, are you helping people connect to share knowledge and crowdsource it together? Because if you're the only person delivering all your enablement and learning, and you're the point for everything, right, for all question and answer, then also that makes you a bottleneck, right? So like, that's something like I try to work on, is make sure I empower their people. We use systems and processes in place and standard operating procedures to make sure like, hey, like we're actually like empowering people to help out with stuff, because anyways, yeah, that's always a risk if we don't do that. Okay, searchable content. This is a really well-researched thing, is that, if we want to make sure we have good contextual help for people, it should be easy to find and searchable. So, let's say they search for a query like how to make a report. And the question is, does your resource, wherever they live, is there a way to kind of tag them or sort them out some way? Can learners dig into them? Or do they have to like manually wade through a bunch of folders in Google Docs or through long lists? So like, again, back to the whole like distance from the learner thing, if it's like 14 steps from them, less likely to engage. So when it comes to searchable content, is it close learner? Can they access quickly? So it's got to be easy to find or they're not going to use it. So cool. Okay, let's go on to the personalized curated content. I think we're got this pretty good. And last of all for that is, not that we can make content individualized for every employee. That's impossible. Just like if you're ever a school teacher, there's no way you can make your lesson for all 100 students. It's like different. But what we're saying is that can you deliver some things that can mirror the employee's needs? So let's say I'm a new salesperson. If I'm not getting delivered to me a mini path or course to support my immediate needs in that new role, right, that's not very personalized. But if I can do that and give them something that new sales hires can use, then like that helps a lot, to help them be upskilled on the job. So cool. All right.
Next one.
Woo. Okay. Authentic and valuable. This is it's probably my second favorite. And you guys have probably heard of David Merrill. He's like a giant in the instructional design world. And from his paper about the first principles of instruction, he asks, does the instruction, and we'll just put an enablement here, right, involve authentic, real world problems or tasks? So in short, like, does it match what they need to do and what they care about? Is it valuable to the employees? So if I'm like a firefighter and I'm being trained how to put out fires, and if I'm shoved into an AC fueled simulator where it's just press buttons to put out flames, that does not guarantee transfer to the workplace. Rather, I'm going to go out on site in a hot uniform and I'm going to put out a controlled fire to practice those skills, right? So it's authentic. Not that we're firefighters or our employees are going to be putting out fires, at least, not literally anyways, maybe tech fires, but, like, doesn't match what they need to do. And our enablement should be bits and resources to support those authentic real world tasks the best it can. So if you're seeing like a pain point, like let's say a lot of your customers are searching for the same thing, or you're seeing support get a lot of tickets around X, Y, or Z, that's a call to develop some enablement for your team members to help with that. Or let's say you see a new competitor rising up with a different feature and your sales team says, hey, Chi, I don't know how to address this. Like, what do I do? And this is where you start seeing those authentic needs for developing your enablement and learning. So cool. All right, so some quick tools. If you've never heard of it, John Keller's ARCS-V model. It's an awesome model about how to motivate people and make things valuable to them. And it stands for attention, relevancy, confidence, success, and volition. We have a link there when you get the slides to get like a little handout that summarizes that and how to do it. That's a great just kind of like tool to use for how to motivate people and make it valuable. Yeah, and cool. Another thing is back to the human first. Talk to learners before making your solution. Kind of simple. Yeah.
I'm hearing such a common theme throughout, like, even though there are the different pillars, I keep saying pillars, but the different like qualities and the traits and the themes, like they all have a very human first like component to them. And it brings me back to like this H2H theme that I keep talking about. It seems like in every month and every event and every conversation, it's human to human. Like there is a human being who's building and designing, and there's a human being who's going to be receiving and learning and applying. And when we're focusing on that, no matter which theme you are applying, like you're going to see much better results. So I'm really seeing this common thread here and I'm loving it.
Yeah. Our last point is super simple, iterative and flexible. So like not everything you create is going to bode well with your audience. It might be sort of effective. It might be killer and awesome. But there's a really cool guy I follow on LinkedIn named Clark Quinn. You probably have heard of him. He's a really veteran in like the whole organizational education, instructional design field. And he had a recent blog where he talked about testing and tuning things after you release. We should always be in this humble mindset that like our enablement can always improve. And so use the analogy of like, where you tune guitar strings. I play guitar, right? And as you play and do things, the strings eventually are going to get out of tune because they're being worked, And since we're dealing with people and the human mind is vastly complex and scientists are still figuring out how the mind works and learns, it's only natural for us to test and tune. This means that just creating one solution, just throwing it out there at people and like not checking how it's doing that won't work. We got to kind of like assess it, see how it's going, check some metrics, talk to people and then fine tune. I love how he didn't say test and blow up, right? Like, oh my gosh, it's bad. Let's just go. He's like, no, okay, let's test it. And like, what can we shed, improve? So it's really like, you don't have to go back to the drawing board. Like, how can you tune it up, make it better? And the last point is include feedback for your learners, your employees, and customers before, during, and after your enablement. That way they can grow with it better. This can be in the form of like automated feedback from within your app or your product, or in the form of literal human conversation, follow-up emails, and so forth. So feedback can come from a person or from, I guess, a machine. It can come from either way.
So what are those tools to help
Yeah.
make it iterative?
Oh gosh, a lot of stuff, but Google Analytics and other technology reporting tools. Again, voice of customer research can help with this. Any kind of formative evaluation where you're getting feedback on how it's going with the learners. That can come in the form of surveys and smile sheets where you try to get the reaction from the learners to see how it's going. You can also throw in little assessments along there to see if they're learning or capturing it, or rehearsals or practice with the learners. And just check and see how things are going with completion and drop-offs. Are they staying engaged with it and sticking with it to the end? And last of all, it goes back to listening. Just having open and honest conversations with people, with your stakeholders, with the learners. Like, you just don't like cover your ears and hope for the best kind of thing. So that's it for tools. I think that's our five themes.
Those are our five. Yeah, I'm loving this. And I can't miss this opportunity because we've kind of hinted toward it, that when we're talking about the technology reporting, like you have a lot of data available. Data. I never know how the proper way to say that word, but you have so much available at your hands to kind of see what's going on, to see what's effective, and to really like take it once you've listened and you're trying to be, optimized, right? Trying to optimize what you're working on. Like, you have so much available to you, like look at it, really dive into it. And when we're talking about like the collaboration and the circle of enablement and all the people that are going to have to help make this work, right? That's when you're going to lean into your data teams, and you're going to lean into like the analytics and the people who can help you see what's working and like dive into those data points. And having a technology platform that reports is great. Having one that does it for you somehow, visualized, is even better. Hint.
Absolutely.
It's just a little soft lob there. But yeah, so now, like, Jordan, that was really great. I love these themes. I love how practical they are, and I love how you've broken them down and made them really feel simple, but also like exciting. Like there's something that can excite you and invigorate you to actually do this and do this well. I would love to open the floor for questions. So if you have questions, now is the time to drop them into the chat
or
the Q&A panel, and let's talk. And if you want to get on stage and like talk and ask questions directly, you are welcome to. Just raise your hand and I will promote you so that you can come on and we can talk. But like, I really love the way you approach this topic, Jordan. I think there was so many ways you could go about it, especially when we're talking about enablement and how like vague and nebulous. Like, I love that phrase you use when you're talking about enablement, because it's a vague and nebulous space right now, but it's buzzy and we're hearing it pretty often. And with all the resources available, I think it's easy to get confused, or it's easy to try to figure out like, where do I start? How do I do this? Where are the resources to help me do this better? So I love that. So either you hit all the, okay, not a question, but I'd also recommend a digital asset manager such as Canto in that first group of tools. Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. That's true. Once you start getting thousands of resources and images and videos, Google Drive or OneDrive only has so much power to help you like sort that out. Yeah. So definitely digital asset manager, some kind of CMS capability. That's a huge help with a lot of content.
And that's like the key to scalability too, right? It's being able to like see all of the things and then be to see all of the things you've created, and also be able to swap things out. I think I would love to I don't want to say plug, but mention like Evolve, because that brings me to one of the components that Evolve can do, where when you update something, it updates it wherever it lives. So having like a digital asset manager where you can see those things and change them, and that allows you to be scalable like at some point when you're building this. So and my brain does like lots of things, and I start connecting all the dots and all.
100%. Cool.
Yeah, I love that. Great suggestion, Danny. While we're waiting for a few more questions to come in, for conversations like this for enablement and just a lot of topics about customer education, there are tons of resources out there to continue the conversation. One of which is the Customer Education Slack channel. It's a Slack group, but customereducation.org, started by a very popular person in our community, Sumaro Chatterjee. He's super awesome, super great, but he's created this community of customer education professionals, but it's really education, people who are delivering organizational education. But I think that's a great resource for people who are here, especially instructional designers who are trying to learn and apply best practices. We would love for you all to join and just like start talking, start learning, start applying, like really like share your mind with these people and like learn and glean. And I just love that resources that this topic comes up pretty often in there. So if you're wanting to learn more about it, then absolutely slide in there. We will drop a link to that shortly. We have a question from is it Lucy? What is your suggestion on how often or when you should do a content review to ensure relevance and accuracy of your content? That's an excellent question.
Okay, so first of all, Lucy, that's an area that I feel always challenged by, because when you have a lot of content, you know, like it's hard to always judge that. So there's a couple of factors. Number one is you can do if you have a content way to manage your content by dates. There's always you can do by freshness. So if you want to set with your team, like after 6 months, review something where it gives you like an auto notification, that's a win. Another thing that can trigger a content review as well would be a new product release that's related to old documentation. So let's say you have a new release on, say, a chatbot feature, right? And it replaces, updates, or augments something from the old features. That should be a cue to update media, copy, and so forth on that thing. So I'd say by freshness, by time, by release, and I'm sure there's other things that, do you guys, please in the chat, if there's other things that trigger your content reviews, like throw them in the chat, please. I'm happy to share that with you out loud. Or
I think Radhika actually in our last session in, this is September. In July, when we were talking about data, she mentioned that when you're analyzing the data points and you're seeing like you can see the effectiveness of certain types of courses and certain pieces of content in their like drop-off rates and things like that, and comparing to those. So I think that could also be like a light bulb or a flag when you're doing content reviews, like seeing the effectiveness of a piece of a portion of a course or something. That can be a flag to like really evaluate the whole course, or maybe a piece of content within a course. I think that's a great way to she mentioned that. I think that's a good point too.
Yeah, so I think in general, get a cadence with your team where you're checking on like metrics and stuff, and at least once a month to see like, hey, like what's working and what's not. I know if you're in a smaller team, that can be like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to survive publishing current content and like keeping up with it. But like, you know, try to find some kind of cadence or a small step forward where you can start measuring what's working and what's not, or what needs to be refreshed. Danny mentioned, yeah, when laws change, that's a great point. Yeah, if you're in if you do a lot of compliance learning enablement, 100%. If we saw some really low testing scores or course scores,
that's a great point.
If the efficacy is low, if either reveals that, hey, my content's not teaching what I'm measuring well enough, or the assessment itself is invalid. Both are kind of cause for alarm. Not alarm, but like we got to go test and tune again, right? I got to go revise that and fix it up. Max, great to see the framing and language used here, where learning design meets product design. Thanks, Jordan. Question, you're welcome, by the way. I love that. How would you leverage adapt this approach for learners who may have reached training fatigue or may feel resistance to the subject of the training tool? Okay. Thank you, Max. You brought up like, in a world where we're like surrounded by content, like in general, there's content fatigue. Like think about your feeds and social media. I don't know about you, but I get stressed when I'm on like Instagram for too long. It's just, we have too much video, too much streaming channels. There's just always just too much. So it comes back to value to cut through the noise and how close it is to the context of your learners' lives. So like, I would recommend leveraging social learning and leveraging peer teaching, peer mentorship, leverage like the social aspect of it, especially, and also making sure the content is segmented and short. I know that like teaching really deep skills takes time, but so plan out a way to kind of like release things in bits that are valuable, engaging, and like, you know, like today's top tip, or just something kind of rolled out over time, versus a, hey, here's your 2-hour course, go do it. Like no one has time for that on the job. I mean, unless your job place creates time for learning each week, which is a separate thing. So, so ask, is it an environmental issue or is it just too long? Like there could be several, leverage social learning, segment it, chunk it out, make it valuable.
I think I would also like to talk through just general incentives. I think a lot of times we talk about the incentives to get customers or our learners to complete training. One of those elements is gamification. And I don't mean like just adding a point structure, just adding like rewards and badges. Like it's more than that. Gamification is a discipline that you can weave throughout the course experience itself. And so when you're focusing on like that experience, it's really like Jordan is saying, being true to the pillars and being true to the themes and making sure you're being social and you're giving opportunities to present it in a way that is familiar and isn't too much of the same that they're seeing so that it's overloaded, but it's also being innovative in a way where you're like, okay, let's figure out how to make this different enough than what we're used to consuming. Then it's not just a Zoom webinar. It's not just this, it's a full experience and you're thinking about it from the beginning to the end, but gamification is a way to do that because it's thinking about those elements that keep people engaged and actually entertain somewhat and add an entertainment value to the learning experience. But I did want to point, we do have a blog about incentives that you can use to get people to complete training. So we'll point to that in our recap as well.
Yeah, and definitely check out ARCSV, the ARCSV model from John Keller. That's a great thing talking about motivation, right? So Gabrielle said, how do you do assessment for content like product release? Currently, my organization doesn't assess how well people are informed. We just get message out there, which is something we are seeking for a change now. Okay, so when we think about assessment, that's great for checking on, growth and changes with, skill and knowledge and habits. When it comes to a product release, it's more of like a marketing communications or like a get to know the feature page. The way you might measure that is some analytics like on the page time, did they bounce off of it? Did they complete the page? Are you seeing a drop in support questions about that feature? So let's say you had like 100 questions last month about this new chat bot, and post the release of your content, you're seeing like a 15% drop within a week or two. That's a sign that, hey, my content's working. So if you can't assess skill, knowledge, or habits right away, then use other metrics to track the learner engagement and how effective it was with them. And of course, if your content has a way to do surveys or get reaction to it or star ratings, that's also a pro, like kind of reaction level. Thanks, Chi, for sharing in customer education Slack channel.
No problem.
Yeah.
And while we are still taking questions because we are booked for the full hour, but I did want to go through and encourage you all to connect with Jordan on LinkedIn. He is very, very, very engaging. He posts a really lot of great both personal and professional updates. So please make sure you connect with him. We just released a research report that's really examining the state of organizational education, but talks a lot about the importance of just the investment you're making in a customer education or organizational education initiative, how to make sure that it transforms from being just money spent to a profit center, like being able to turn it into something that's valuable to your organization. And this report is really great. And I really, really hope that you all download it, read it, but also going back to something Jordan said in the very beginning, it's like having a program owner, having someone in the that owns this enablement, that owns this initiative that people can reach to and can kind of organize the chaos is what's going to allow you to get out of this program and get out of the initiative what you're hoping to. So check out the report. It's really, really, really wonderful and really meaty and really great. We just launched our TikTok this week. So I would love for you all to follow us on TikTok. Yes, that is my face, but it will not just be my face. It will be lots of Intellum employees and team members sharing really awesome customer education, employee education, partner education content on there. You might see some clips from _recaps. You might see some stuff you've never seen before, but follow us on TikTok, follow us on LinkedIn. We share lots of really cool things. And then next month, please come back because we would love to have you on our next session, which we're talking about successful subscription-based learning. So you can go ahead and click the calendar at the top of your screen in the platform, and you can register for that right now. And then last but not least, I would love for you to share your feedback. This is my baby. It was my first child before my daughter was born. And so it means a lot when you guys tell me how it's working, how it's helping you apply these principles and really like build great customer and really great education programs. So I'm going to drop my survey link right now, and I would love for you to share it with everyone. I'm sharing it with you, and I would love for you to fill it out. That's what I'm trying to say. Try typing and talking at the same time is quite interesting. So if you could click that for me and just share a few, it takes literally 2 minutes. I would love for you all to share your feedback on this and how we can continue to make this great. If you have topic suggestions, you can hit us up. Any final thoughts, Jordan?
Danny, I would love to play out, but I don't have a guitar like behind me in this room, unfortunately. So that's
dang.
awesome.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, maybe next time if I'm on another, if she invites me to another underscore here, hopefully in the future, wink, wink, I can maybe play out for people. So yeah.
There is no wink, wink needed. I have already decided Jordan is coming back. He's got so much great information for y'all. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I just dropped the link to the report as well. So again, you guys can reach us at any time. We're here for you. My email is cjohnson@intellum.com. Please reach out and I can connect you with Jordan and we can do all the things. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you. See everybody.